For this cultural exploration, I would like to share a photography with you. It is a picture that was taken by Denise Kang for Craft in America. It resonated very deeply with my own culture. It is not Kang as the photographer that we follow on this journey. We are considering the message conveyed by his amazing picture of the community altar honoring the dead for El Dia de los Muertos, All Souls Day, taken at Grand Park in 2016 in Los Angeles. As you can see, this photograph is a piece of art in its own right, but what message does it bring to beholders? This community altar is the creation of Ofelia Esparza of Mexico. The image was pulled from archives by Carolyn Coons in September 2022 to echo Hispanic and Latin voices celebrating the Day of the Dead on November 2nd. Ofelia Esparza is an alterista, an altar maker. She specialized in making altars, a well-known element of Mexican culture. This is a tradition by which people from Mexico honor their ancestors, recalling their memory. When we zoom into the background of Esparza's picture, we can see her personal altar, which gives a better view of the elements presented on the community altar that is so magnificent. There are people's portraits, flowers, candles, and crosses, as well as personal objects like shoes and books. Even a hairbrush is included. These elements are traditional symbols of personal attachment that hold great sentimental value. People offer flowers to those they love. They frame their pictures to show to everyone all the affection they have for them. They display their past belongings because they miss their presence and wish they had never left. Ophelia Esparza's community altar, which was taken to a spectacular level of creativity and beauty, is truly a genuine representation of what personal altars in people's homes might look like. When people migrate, the first baggage they take with them is their culture, the way of life that was passed down from their ancestors generation after generation, along with their values and beliefs. People from Mexico transmitted to each generation their tradition of making altars in honor of their ancestors. When Esparza builds a community altar in Grand Park, so do the indigenous people living in Los Angeles, just as do the people of Mexico. Across the land, altars are built and cemeteries are decorated with flowers. Mexicans, through their migration, have taken their tradition of making altars in honor of their ancestors wherever they went. As the result, the celebration of the Day of the Dead has become one of the most well-known elements of their culture. But in fact, it is practiced throughout countries of Latin America sharing Hispanic culture. Aside from national identity, each community brings its own sense of aesthetics to the ceremony. For example, in Guatemala, the tradition is to fly a huge kite on the Day of the Dead. I am happy to be sharing this discussion during Hispanic Heritage Month that started on September 15th. Human beings have always migrated. The Europeans came to America centuries ago, and they too carried with them their cultures and traditions. And those who were Catholics always honored all the saints as well as the souls of the departed at the beginning of the month of November. Coming to America, Europeans passed their traditions along to the communities they created, including those of the people who lived in the colonies. French and Spanish people settled all over the American continent, giving birth to what will become Latin America. If the Spanish-speaking countries were influenced by Spain, the French-speaking ones were influenced by France. And on All Souls' Day, the French as well honored the dead by decorating the cemeteries, visiting the graves of their loved ones, bringing flowers. And people in French Caribbean islands like Martinique behave likewise. I am from Haiti, a French-speaking country, and I'm also of Catholic faith. Just as they do in France and other Catholic countries, families like mine celebrate the Day of the Dead. We honor the memory of our beloved lost family members. We go to the traditional memorial masses. We recommend prayers for the departed souls. We give offerings in their memory and visit their graves. After Mass, we usually share food and drinks while we recall our best memories with them. There are peoples of the Americas who descend from the enslaved Africans. Their ancestors also had brought their culture with them. In fact, the only baggage that they took on the slave ships was their traditions, deepest beliefs, and values. As African descendants, Haitians are generally considered voodoo believers. Among them, there are those who practice religious beliefs brought by their forefathers from Africa. They too celebrate the Day of the Dead during the 2 days dedicated by Catholics to All Saints and All Souls. The Day of the Dead is the hallmark of Mexican culture, yet it is celebrated with specific particularities across the Western world. It is important to remember that Halloween happens on the eve of November, opening the 2-day ceremonies. For example, here we have pictures taken in Nice and in Mexico of lit candles on the Day of the Dead. They are very similar, while they also resemble just as much the previous picture taken of voodoo practitioners lighting candles in a cemetery in Haiti. Coming across the picture of Ofelia Esparza's design for the Day of the Dead celebration, I decided to further my research on the subject. I am happy to share here 2 links. The first one is a short but very interesting documentary from the British Museum on that celebration. And the second one shows how a teacher has introduced the story of the Day of the Dead in her classroom. I hope you will enjoy viewing them as much as I did. On November 2nd, celebrating the Day of the Dead, I bring flowers to my mother's grave, just like I had brought flowers with her to my grandparents' graves. I light a candle and I say prayer. As immigrants, the members of my family expect each other to do the same in honor of our ancestors wherever we may be. Port-au-Prince, Miami, New York, Chicago, or Canada. We believe that our children will pass the tradition down to their children, keeping our culture alive, a difficult task in this era of globalization. Haitians do not build altars like the people of Mexico, and they do not fly kites like those of Guatemala. However, Haitians, just like Mexicans and other peoples in Latin America, along with European Catholics, honor their ancestors on the Day of the Dead according to their specific religious beliefs, be it in a Catholic church or in a voodoo temple. Discovering this tradition of altar making within Mexican culture through the photography of Ofelia Esparza's community altar in Grand Park in Los Angeles has reinforced my respect for Mexican culture and deepened my appreciation for all cultures alike.